government is hoping to vaccinate at least 30 million people before Christmas, but only a little over 10 million people have been fully vaccinated so far. Numbers show that many are still hesitant to take the jab. So what sort of education intervention can be employed to enlighten people on the importance of getting vaccinated? The Pfizer jab is one of the most popular in South Africa, so let's find out just how safe it is. Helping us answer this question is the medical director of Pfizer in South Africa, Dr. Bha Ndungane Tlakula. Doctor, thanks for your time. Appreciate it. So that is the key question, right? How safe is the Pfizer vaccine?
Good evening to you, Shahan, and the viewers, and thanks for having me this evening. So the safety of vaccines, in general, vaccines are safe and they are effective, and they are one of the most effective tools for protecting people, against the COVID-19 infection. So I think for the public, reassurance in terms of safety and efficacy, vaccines are safe and effective, and they followed a rigorous, process in ensuring the safety and efficacy, Shahan. When we're doing the development or when we're in the clinical research stages, that's really where those steps are followed, and that's where each and every step is given a green light by the regulatory authorities and approval before you can proceed and have it given to the population.
Yeah, so you mentioned this, that it went through proper processes, but that's what skeptics are talking about, right? That it happened over too short a time compared to how long it took for other vaccines to have been created. Can you reassure South Africans who are concerned about this that there were no shortcuts and that the process can be trusted?
Thanks for the question. I think with the pandemic, the speed around any collaborative efforts was quite critical, so that we ensured, that we contribute positively into curbing the curve of COVID-19. So when it comes to the research and development of the vaccines, with the speed, there was no compromise when it comes to safety and efficacy, right? And traditionally, how we would do things is that we would do things in a sequential way. But with the COVID-19 and with the innovation and I think that the pandemic facing us, Shahan, things had to be done in parallel, right? So as we're developing the vaccines, right, we were in touch or in collaboration with the regulatory authorities to making sure that the steps that were being taken were being relooked and were being approved, as I've mentioned, right? And before it went into the hands of the individuals or population or South Africans in this case, those steps were not compromised at all. So I think what's reassuring and what I can reassure the South Africans today is that nothing has been compromised, and the data that we have seen has really, shown efficacy and safety of the vaccines that are being used.
Has there been any side effects of major concern so far, not just in South Africa, but across the world?
Globally, we're quite aware of the extent of the rollout, right? Millions have received the vaccine. And when it comes to adverse events or side effects, like any other medication, right? Vaccines do have side effects, which are quite minor or self-limiting, and that are usually, resolved within 7 days of getting the jab, right? So it's side effects that are manageable, and it's side effects that get reported and do get into the safety portal and are being assessed by the regulatory authorities. So I would urge that, the public do report the side effects at the vaccination sites, because there's ongoing analysis that happen, with every side effects that get reported, Shahan.
Yeah. So let's talk about the two-jab approach for Pfizer. Many South Africans have gone for their first jab. I think over 1 million have not returned for their second jab, which is raising concerns among the Premier, etc., especially in Gauteng. How effective is the one jab, just to put the context in there for people who have gotten it and haven't gone back for the second one?
Right. So as it is a 2-dose schedule, the 2 dose needs to be received for full efficacy. So if an individual has received just 1 dose, that's just partial protection that the individual will get, right? For full protection and 95% efficacy that was observed in the clinical trials, you need to go back for your second dose. So you can't rely on 1 dose and sit back and say, I am vaccinated. That's not good enough. You are just partially vaccinated, and you need to be fully vaccinated by getting 2 doses.
So let's talk about the booster shots, because that's what the world is focusing on right now. After 2 Pfizer shots, do you think in the long term it is necessary to get a 3rd booster shot?
The booster topic, as you have said, that it's a wild world, debated or communicated strategy. And I would just allude to the WHO, which is our body that guides the vaccination efforts across the globe. And what they have released recently is that they are recommending the booster dose, right, for immunocompromised individuals. Now, if we just put that into context, it's we know that there's a strategic advisory group of experts that inform the world based on the evidence that come up, and this is the recommendation that they have recently provided for the countries around the booster dose.
Okay, so if yes, when it comes to those who need it, just in case they, have illnesses that could lead to an infection or a worrying infection later on, does that mean then that the vaccine protection after 2 doses eventually wears off? Is that the long-term effect of these vaccines? Will it eventually wear off?
So long-term, we're still analyzing that. And if you remember, we've just, implemented the rollout and the studies were done last year. So follow-up around immunity is still being looked at. And I think once we have that data, then we'll confidently, communicate around the immunity long-term. As of now, we don't have data that really informs us around that.
All right, Doctor, last question, and obviously it's one that people are also talking about, is this ridiculous notion of a chip being implanted and all of that nonsense, misinformation that's doing the rounds. You can obviously say that's absolute rubbish, right?
I can't repeat your words, but I think it's misinformation, Shahan, that needs to be addressed because if we look at the mechanism of action of how the messenger RNA works, it doesn't touch the genetic material, it doesn't alter the nucleus. It's just a message, it sends a message to the cells of your body that instructs the cells to generate the proteins, and those proteins, stimulate the immune response. So if you look at the whole mechanism of action of the messenger RNA, there is no, interference with your genetic material or changing your nucleus at all.
All right.
So I don't want to repeat your words, but it's misinformation.
Yes, okay, misinformation, myths. That's basically the politically correct way of putting it. Thank you so much for your time and actually debunking those myths for us. Appreciate it. That was Dr. Bha Ndungane Tlakula, Medical Director at Pfizer South Africa.